Yeah, being at Duke, I had the privilege of coaching under, one of the great coaches, David Cutcliffe, and he, like Coach Smart, they put a big emphasis on it. It's been an area where young players can develop, but it's also been an area where a lot of really good players play. And I think that's really key when you talk about being good on special teams, not only from a culture standpoint, but also from the play on the field. So we did. At Duke, we had the same type of level of dedication of starters playing on special teams. Obviously, you got to watch their reps and whatnot, but the emphasis was there, and obviously the emphasis is there, but you're playing with a little bit different product. A lot of great players here, a lot of speed difference, but a lot of really good players.
When we were out of practice the other day, we heard Kirby Smart yelling at his team that the punt is the most important play in football. Can you expand upon that? Do you agree with him? And if so, why?
Yeah, so a punt, you think about it, right? Punts and punt returns, those are the ones that happen most often in the area of special teams. And we look at it as every single time we've got an opportunity to punt the ball. A lot of people look at it like, oh, we have to punt the ball. We think our punt team is a weapon for us. And we dedicate a lot of time and a lot of personnel to that. Anytime we punt, there's 40 yards plus up for grabs. And if you can take advantage of that over the course of a game, 3-4 punts, that adds up over time in the area of hidden yardage. So you get that opportunity and, say you're in a situation where you're backed up and you could take a really bad situation and you could turn it into a great situation. Take, Thorson's punt against Tennessee in 2022, we're not necessarily in great field position. We turned it around to the ball out at the 1 turns into a backed up punt, turns into a fair catch on the plus 35, and then a touchdown the next play. So that is a big area where we can affect field position, and we dedicate a lot of time and we play a lot of good players on it, and we work it a lot, put a lot of investment into it.
Yeah, Coach, you mentioned watching snaps. I feel like you guys have far more data nowadays in terms of the workload. Are you ever watching that in game to be like, hey, this guy's obviously gassed, we might need to get his replacement in? Are you guys allowed to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. You go into a plan every single game with, okay, we've got this guy here, mainly what's he doing the play before? You've got maybe an offensive player. Last year we had Arian Smith and we had Dom Lovett. They were two of the best gunners in the country, and they were really good at what they did. But at the same time, there was a good chance that both those guys were going to be in on third down. So every single third down, we would have all of our gunners that were behind them report to the pad, because if they were running, a go route and then they had to turn around and cover a punt, that's not necessarily fair to ask them to do that. So we definitely had eyes on that and awareness of that. And I think just an overall level of snaps that someone's going to play throughout the course of a game, I think it's imperative that you have a great backup and you have a good plan for those guys, so you don't have a big fall off.
Yeah, you guys brought in Zachariah Branch from the transfer portal, and he obviously had a ton of experience at USC returning punts and kicks. How do you expect him to help you guys in those areas of the game this year?
Yeah, I think Zach's done a great job. I think obviously he brings something that you don't get all the time, which is in-game experience. In-game experience is really valuable, and it's good for him to have that. I think he's going to come here and he's going to have a positive impact on our return units, but he's working back there with a lot of guys, working probably more returners than we have just as far as catching the ball, reps. We got a lot of dynamic guys back there, but, punt returners, we've got, Zakovi's back there, Landon Rolden's back there as a freshman, Talon Taylor's back there, and then we're still working Cash back there and London Humphreys at punt returners. So, he's back there and he's repping and he's getting really, really valuable reps here. Got a lot of catches this summer, and I think he's continuing to grow. But I think anytime you got a good returner, and I think we can get a good one out of that batch, especially with the in-game experience of Zach, I think that'll help us for sure.
Kirk, Drew Miller was put into a pretty tough situation last year when Brett got hurt. How do you feel like he handled even the lead up to that Sugar Bowl and then obviously the Sugar Bowl and just where he is going into this year?
They always tell backup quarterbacks that you better prepare like you're going to be the starter, and I think you say the same thing for backup punters, but it's also like a little less realistic that the backup punter is going to go in the game. I think he had to prepare probably differently than he ever has, and he had longer to do it for one game. I think he did a great job. I think the most valuable thing, like I said, is in-game experience, and I think him having that in-game experience is going to be huge, moving forward throughout his career, because he's got obviously some years and eligibility left as he goes forward. But I think he prepared really well. And I think it helps, too, when you put a punter out there and you look around and you see the guys that he has around him, surrounding him in that situation. And he felt really comfortable with the personnel that was out there with him and knowing that they had his back. So I think that helps.
Kirk, on punting and like the concept of hidden yardage, whatever, do you all have stats that you think accurately kind of gauge that and, give a good presentation of who does well with it and who doesn't?
Yes. So every single game, we track hidden yardage, right? So how many yards did we gain in the special teams realm, right? So basically where did our offense start on their drives based on their offense starting on their drives, and where did we help our defense out, and where do we help our offense out? So every single yard has to be yardage, and that could be anywhere from 6 yards, maybe it's negligible, or it could be sometimes as big as, 90 yards, which is, when you look at it, basically a complete offensive drive. So we track that every single game. I think it's an area that we harp on our guys, because sometimes you can go out there on a special teams play and, the reward yield is not as big as you may think. But coming off the field, you look at it over the course of a game, you're like, wow, that impacted the game significantly. So we do track that on a daily basis.
Will Brett be available to punt the first game, and do you expect he's going to easily return to form this season after his injury?
Yeah, it's been fun to coach Brett over the years as a punter. And seeing him rehab an injury, you get to see him in a different light. And I've been proud of him, the way that he has attacked the rehab and how he's really, really been proactive about getting after it into the training room. He's been great. He's on schedule. He's doing great. He's doing everything, the training room has asked him to do and probably more. But he's eager, I know, and obviously the training room has certain guidelines they got to meet and whatnot. So he's right on track. He's doing well.
Yeah, you touched earlier on the importance of the gunners. Who are some of the guys that are trying to replace Arian and Dom, and what makes a great gunner, given how successful Arian and Dom were for you guys in recent years?
That's a great question. Okay, so we've had a good track record of gunners around here with Arian and Dom. They were great. You go back and look at the success they had, combined with Thorson's punts, and those guys were great. And I think the biggest thing as far as what you look for in a gunner is, one, speed. I think fire, passion, and energy comes into that too. Want to be out there. And then also the ability to get someone on the ground. And you don't always know that with offensive players. You got to put them out there in practice and situations to make sure that they have that third one. But I think those three things, speed, fire, passion, energy, and ability to get someone on the ground, is huge. I think Arian and Dom have made it easier, right, for us to look forward to the future of who's going to replace them, because they set such a high standard that now it's not something like pulling teeth to ask someone to go out there and do it. They want to do it. It's become kind of a place of honor on our punt team. So it's kind of up for grabs, and it's a competition, and we've got a lot of good candidates. We've got London Humphreys working over there. We've got KJ Bolden working at gunner. We've got Daniel Harris. We've got Jeremy Bell. We've got Dalen Everett. No one is off the table when it comes to working at that position. So we've had a lot of good candidates. We've got a lot of guys that can run. We've got some guys that can get some guys on the ground. So I think that's a great competition to keep an eye on, and obviously one that those guys want to be a part of.
You guys have had a lot of success recruiting kickers and punters the last few years. You see it again looking ahead to next year's class. Just in general, when you're recruiting a kicker, recruiting a punter, what do you sell them on? Come to Georgia. This is why you should come to Georgia.
Development, right? So when you have a good track record with kickers and punters, typically those guys see the track record and they want to follow in the same footsteps as those guys. And then I think the other thing too is we all know that the platform that Georgia provides as far as the level of competition that you're going to have, and I think that attracts just the right type of specialist that we want. To come in and be a kicker as a freshman, to come in and be a kicker even as a sophomore, and to be put on that stage early is something that you can't shy away from. So those guys wanting to come here and be that guy tells you a little bit more about their mindset and how they attack things on a daily basis. So I think they want to come kick at Georgia. They're going to come kick in front of, thousands, hundreds of thousands, and they're going to have that pressure, and they want it.
Kirk, 2 years ago, Georgia was second in the SEC in kickoff return yards. Last year, you were last, but you only had half as many opportunities, only 12 actual kick returns. Was that based on other teams just putting it out of the back of the end zone, or was that a plan on your part? Hey, just take the we'll take the fair kick.
Fair catch, yeah. A lot of that was situational. So obviously, there's a lot of really good kickers in the SEC. So we got a lot of balls going out of the back of the end zone. And as far as the statistics is being ranked really well and then not having a great of a year last year. That's been a point of emphasis in this fall camp. Like we show the statistics, we say this is where we want to get better. But at the same time, some of that was also a little bit situational. We had some squibs that we had some unfortunate bounces as far as the ball checking up on the sideline that we didn't necessarily get to have your normal return that you would get to set up. But with that being said, it's great fuel to the fire, and those guys have attacked KOR up to this point through 6 practices really well. But I think that's definitely an area that we want to try and get better at.
Yeah, Coach, over here to your right. When a quarterback starts to become inaccurate, odds are there's something mechanically that is wrong. With a kicker, is there anything you're watching mechanically, or is it all mental? If they start to have misses, it's just up top, and we got to talk to them about that, give them confidence. Or are you watching a kicker's mechanics, and could that lead to inaccuracies with kickers?
Yeah, I think it could be both, right? It could be mental or it could be mechanics. And sometimes the mental part leads to the mechanics, right? So you got to keep an eye on both. You got to keep an eye on watching kickers, and then I think you also got to have conversations with them about what's going on and see if you can fix that part too or help them along in that part. I think the biggest thing is, there's people that maybe claim to be kicking gurus. I think the biggest thing you can do is watch film with them and talk them through, and you basically show them, hey, here's what you were doing when it worked well. Here's what you're doing now. Let's get back to what we were doing when it worked well. And then, why are you doing that? I think that's important, the why, when you're coaching kickers. Why is this happening? And that can sometimes lead into the mental part. But for sure, yeah, you got to watch them and you got to help them and be there for them through the process of maintaining consistency.
Any fear in using KJ Bolden as a gunner? It's not exactly like you're stacked at safety right now.
No, not at all. I mean, that's, to be honest with you, punt's first play of defense, right? KOC's first play of defense. So he's going to be put in very similar situations at gunner that he would be, playing safety. So we have best players play special teams, and especially on punt, and I think he's going to be a real asset there.
Got time for one more question?
You mentioned at gunner, like, you've got guys that are wanting to play that position now. How have you all, and you got starters across all of your special teams units, like have you all been able to foster a culture of people wanting to play on special teams? And how do you feel like that compares here to other programs that you've been at?
Yeah, I can't really speak for other programs, but I can tell you it starts from the top, right? Coach Smart does a great job with the culture of special teams. And the best players play on special teams ever since I've gotten here and well before that. So I think these guys, they come in and it's not necessarily a chore to play special teams, especially when you see guys that come before them that have had such success. You show the punt team. We show the punt team every single year. We showed 2017 punt team, and every single one of them, but one maybe was drafted. You show the 2020 punt team, everyone is in the league. You show the 2023 punt team, all but 2, are in the NFL now. And you see guys like Nakobe Dean, you see guys like Nolan Smith, you see guys like Jalen Carter playing on special teams. It becomes something that they want to do because they know it's overall part of their development. It helps them. It also helps the team win. It helps them get playing time early maybe. And they're going to be asked at some point at the next level to play special teams. And we want to make sure that's not the first time that they do it. So we always say, hey, it's good for the team. It's good for the team. Why? It's good for the team for winning purposes. We can affect the game with field position and momentum and special teams, right? We say it's good for you, the individual, because it provides opportunity. Maybe you didn't get to play early, but you will get to play, right? And the last one, we say it's good for your future because it's going to set you up for success in the NFL.